It is good to be back, man. Over the years, I have made maybe prideful statements and say, we never close. We just don't do it. We just don't do it. We're just here. We just show up. And so it was a little bit humbling to have to shut down, but it is good to be back. Just curious, how many of you are on Instagram? What about TikTok, Facebook? Come on, just raise your hand. I know we don't want to admit it. We all whatever app that we think is that nobody cares about anymore, we're on it. Your screen time came up this morning and told you how much you had been on it actually. Listen, social media is basically, I think we can all agree that it's basically an online highlight reel of your life, right? Like that's what it is. Like you show the good stuff of your life. Like that's what you do. Everything good, anything that you want good to be true about your life. That's what you put online. That's what you project to the world. This is my life, right? This is what we do. It's an incredible way. And the other thing about social media is that it's not only the highlight reel of your life, but it comes with a built-in scorecard, right? Because when you're looking at social media, you get to see who's winning, right? Like who's winning in life and who's thriving and who's ahead in life. It's an incredible way to feel really insecure about your life, actually, or falsely confident about your life. That's social media. That's what it's all about. Listen, I'm on it. Facebook, Instagram, that kind of thing. I'm on it. I'm not against it, but we just have. It can be a good thing. It's not a bad thing as long as we realize that it ain't real, right? It's just not real. Like Instagram's not real. Like if we could just go into it knowing that this isn't. What I'm looking at is not real. With all the cropping and the filtering and all the captions and all the angles and all that, we just got to know. Like it's okay. You can scroll through it. It's fine, but it's just not real. Like this isn't real. This is not reality. This is a presentation. This is what it is. It's a presentation. I'm presenting to you the life that I want to have. And the reality of my life, I'm not putting on here. I'm just showing you what the life that I want to have. Listen, I wish that I were the kind of person that when I was scrolling through, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and I'm looking at the picture, I want to be the kind of person that scrolls through it and goes, isn't that nice? Look at that. They got the new house. That is good for them. And they went on that trip, that vacation. Man, they deserve that vacation. Like that's and look at their family. Like all matchy on the beach. I mean, that is so nice. So I wish I was more like that, honestly. But actually, just being transparent, the internal dialogue in my what's going on here when I'm scrolling through is, must be nice. I wonder how they're going to afford that. I wonder how much that set them back in debt. They got a new car. That's nice. Oh, look at their family. They're all. I wonder how long it took them to get that picture. Yeah. I mean, you look at it nice angle. Oh, that lighting is really carrying that picture right there. But this is kind of the thing that's going on in my mind and my brain as I'm scrolling through. And here's the thing: we all know it's filtered. Like we all know, you just presented your best. That's all it is. It's all filtered, and yet it still gets to us because we're not just scrolling pictures, are we? We are comparing lives, whether we like it or not. That's what we're doing. We're comparing our lives. And comparison doesn't just mess with how you feel about yourself. It quietly pushes you away from people. This is what comparison does. It's not what we make it out to be. Sorry, I'm looking for my notes here and I can't find it. This could be a really short sermon, actually. That you love updates. There we go. Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's why I bring all that up. It's because Solomon noticed this long before Instagram ever showed up. Solomon realized when he looked around that this is just what we do. This is how we live our lives. And he's going to say there's a reason we do this. There's a reason that we compare our lives to one another, and it never gets to where you think it's going to get you. Like, it's never going to give you the thing that you're looking for. This is actually what this whole series has been about. We've been walking through this book called Ecclesiastes, and it's essentially a journal that is written by a man named Solomon, who he was the king of Israel. He was a guy who had asked for when he was young. He had asked God. God said, "I'll give you whatever you want," and he asked for wisdom because he said, "I don't have a clue what I'm doing in leading a country." And he says, "Okay, so since you didn't ask for riches, I'll give you riches, and since you didn't ask for a long life, I'll give you a long life, and I'll give you all of these things, and I'll make you the wisest person in the world." And this is what we have. This is who Solomon is. He's got all the wisdom. He's got all the riches. He's got all the position and the prestige. He's got all of it, and he took all of that and he did us a favor. He said, I'm going to take all that I have. Well, I have more money than you. I have more prestige than you. I have I have the position that you don't have. I'm going to take all of that, all the authority, all the power that I have, and I'm going to put it into finally finding meaning out of life. Like, where is it found? And so he goes, and a lot of this book, what this book is about, is just I'm looking for it over here. I got all the money, so I bought all the houses, and I bought all the staff, and I got all the stuff. And then I went the other way. I got a simple life. I just got a cabin out by the lake, and I just live there. And he's going, I'm just not finding it. I'm not finding where meaning is found. And at the end, really the whole book is saying it's all meaningless. It doesn't work. But this is what he's doing. This is a journal of a life saying, hey, I'm going to do this experiment so you don't have to. I'm going to go look for meaning. I'm going to find it. And when I find it, I'll tell you where it's found. And so this is what Ecclesiastes is all about. And he's just taking a look, honestly, at life under the sun. What does it look like? What does life under the sun have to offer? Not life as we wish it would be, but life as it actually is. He's just taking an honest look at life. And today in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, Solomon talks about comparison and isolation and what happens when we try to carry life on our own. We're going to pick it up in verse 1. Here's what he says. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors, there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who were already dead were more fortunate than the living who were still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been and has not yet seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Here's what Solomon is just saying. He's saying, I'm looking around, and it's just a broken place. That the world is just a broken, messed up place. There's oppression, there's injustice. It's all just part of life here under the sun. And as long as you're alive, you can be sure that at some point the brokenness of this world is going to mess with you. You're going to feel it. It's going to touch your life. You're going to bump up against the brokenness of this world. And there are things that you're going to face that they just don't make sense. And there isn't always a clear answer for them. I mean, I think about the stories that are represented in this room, the stories and the questions and the situations that many of you have walked through. You did what you were supposed to do, and it still didn't turn out the way that you'd hoped. You went into a situation, you made the best decision, you thought it was a wise decision, it seemed to be wise at the time, and now you're still dealing with the fallout of that decision. You prayed for something to change, and it didn't change. Some of you have watched the relationship fall apart, and there wasn't really this clear moment where you said, well, that's where it broke. It just fell apart. You don't know where it happened, but it's done. Some of you have experienced loss that no amount of explanation can help. Some of you are carrying some pressure right now in your life, and you can't really put a finger on it, but you're just like, it's just heavy. I don't know, but it's just heavy. Now, I'll just tell you, something that I wrestle with and I have wrestled with ever since I've been here is that as a pastor, I want to be able to provide answers. Like, I want to provide explanations. I want to feel like I need to explain everything and make sense of every situation. But here's the thing. Some of you have been on the receiving end of that, whether it's from me or from somebody else that has tried to explain your situation, who's tried to make sense of your situation. And really, it just kind of gets weird, doesn't it? Like, it's really just, a lot of times, it's not that helpful. And maybe you've heard things like, well, maybe if you just had more faith. Or maybe if you were more disciplined in your life. Or maybe if you would just read your Bible more and you would pray some more. Maybe that would make sense. Maybe this is the reason. Or you hear sermons like, hey, 5 steps to a doubt-free life. As though the way out of pain is by following some formula. And so you're like, okay, I'll do the thing. And you did all the things. And you're like, now what? And Solomon's saying, here's what I've noticed. Sometimes there just isn't an answer for the hurt and the sorrow. So what Solomon does next, he doesn't try to explain it. He doesn't try to solve pain or anything like that. Instead, what he does is something more honest and I think more helpful. He starts paying attention to how people actually live in a world that has gone wrong, in a world like this, in the world that we live in, a world that is broken. Not how they should respond, not how they'd like to respond, but how they actually respond when life feels unfair and uncertain. Because when you can't control the outcomes, when you come to the place in your life and you realize, I can't control the outcomes, then all of a sudden the real question becomes, then how are you going to live? Like how are you going to, knowing that you're not going to be able to fix everything, knowing that you can't control everything, then how are you going to live your life in a broken world? And so this is what Solomon does. He notices that most of us respond in pretty predictable ways, actually. And what he notices is that when life gets uncertain, we start protecting ourselves. This is what he says in verse 4. He says, then I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and is striving after wind. Solomon says that so much of our striving is in our work and our effort, in the grind that we're in day to day, is driven by comparison. That it's not driven by what we need. It's not driven because I need food on the table, I need shelter, but no, it's driven, what's driving it is because we're measuring ourselves against other people. I want more options than that person has. I want a bigger house than that person has. I want a nicer car than what that person has. Like this is what he says. This is why we strive. This is why we toil. In other words, the clothes that you're wearing, Solomon is saying, the clothes that you're wearing is not simply because, it's 18 below zero outside, right? And you need to clothe your nakedness. That's not why you have the clothes that you're wearing. The clothes that you buy, the reason that you have the clothes that you have is because you want to be seen in those clothes. That's it. Like those particular clothes. The reason that you drive the car that you drive, you didn't choose it just to get, so a lot of people don't get, this doesn't apply to everybody, but a lot of people, the reason that you chose that car is not simply to get from A to B, but because you want to be seen driving that car. I want people to see me in this car. That's what comparison does. It makes everything about what it says about me. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, that this is why you had to buy that phone, right? Not because it makes calls better, right? Like you're not paying attention to whatever network that phone is using or, whatever. Like that doesn't matter. Like you bought that phone because you think holding that phone says something about you. This is what makes the Apple marketing so brilliant over the years, because they know that they aren't just selling products, that they're selling an identity. This isn't just about, I want to give you a phone so you can have a phone to call somebody or to text somebody or whatever. But this is like, no, this phone says something about you. They've convinced millions of people that owning an iPhone or owning a Mac says something about who you are. Not just what you have, but who you are. Even several years ago, they built an ad campaign around this whole idea. And this was the ad campaign. It just said this: if you don't have an iPhone, well, then you don't have an iPhone. Like that's not about a product. That's about an identity. That's about who you are. And listen, and even for all of you Android users out there, yeah, for whether you like it or not, you're in on it too. You are in on it too, because you don't just have an Android. Come on, you hate Apple, right? Like you bit it just like I did. I just got a better phone than you do. That's it. But listen, and people will pay more money for a particular kind of phone, or will pay more money for a particular kind of car or a particular house or whatever it is. We will pay more money for that because that thing, it whispers something in our ear and it says, listen, this is who you are. This is who you are. Why do we do this? Because at the center of the universe, there we stand. Like, we want to matter. Like, we want to be noticed. And so we look what others have around us, and we have to level up. Here's what comparison does. It doesn't just make me want what you have. It puts me against you. And the moment that I'm against you, I'm no longer with you. And that's called isolation. That you are no longer a friend. You're a benchmark. I'm just watching to see where now I need to level up my life. You're no longer someone to celebrate. You're someone to beat. You're no longer someone that I walk with. You're someone that I measure myself against. And listen, and it's not just like stuff. It's not just houses and phones and cars and clothes and all that. But we do this with everything. Like we compare lives. Like marriages, friendships, families, the kind of relationships that we wish we had. Like you see that picture and you think, why does their marriage seem easier than our marriage? You see that friend group and you go, why can't I have that? You look at someone else's family and you think, why does it look like their family is more put together than my family? It's the comparison trap that catches all of us. And Solomon's warning here is comparison quietly trains us to go alone. And going alone in a broken world is foolish. And once comparison pushes you away from people, Solomon says typically what happens after this comparison, after we've just kind of isolated ourselves, we go one of two places. We respond in one of two ways. We go in one of two directions. And he says, the first one is in verse 5. He says, the fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Better is a handful of quietness than two hands full of toil and striving after the wind. Some people look at the race. Some people look at all of this like trying to get ahead and they're there, so I got to level up, and you're there, so I got to level up. Some people look at this whole situation and decide, you know what, I can't win, so I'm out. Like I can't get to where I want. I can't win this game, so I'm out. So they fold their hands, they disengage, and they're checking out. I mean, why try? I'm already behind. Or you disengage because every conversation reminds me of just what I don't have. Every update reminds me of how far I am behind. Every success story that I hear is not just a moment for me to celebrate what you're doing, but it's just a quiet reminder that I'm losing. And then, man, listen, it can go pretty dark from there. Where disengaging turns into bitterness. Because if I can't beat you, then I'll just hate you. And listen, we don't do this we don't do this outwardly, right? Like it's not something that we just go around and say, I saw what you got, I hate you for that, right? Like that, we don't do that. We smile, we do all the things that, is culturally appropriate, but on the inside, there's a growing sense of bitterness. Some check out, yet some respond in a very different way. This is what he says in verse 7. He says, again, I saw vanity under the sun, one person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil. And his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so they never ask, for who am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. Some check out, and then some burn out. They don't step out of the race, they double down. It's more hours, it's more money, it's more stuff. Hustling for my identity, hustling for my validation. It's more work, it's less margin. And with less margin, there's less time for relationship. Relationships get the leftovers. He says that they don't even have the ability to ask the question, for whom am I toiling? Because they don't have anybody. There's no one there. Work has replaced relationship. This is going alone by staying busy. And Solomon says, and that's foolish too. Comparison puts us against each other, and that isolation pushes us to either check out or burn out. But either way, going alone is foolish. Now, what Solomon does next, I'm just going to say it's a bit unusual for Ecclesiastes because, Ecclesiastes, Solomon's not always this way. He wrote Proverbs, he wrote Song of Solomon. He can be cheery, he can be on the up, but Ecclesiastes is really not that guy. It's not that book. It is like I'm looking for meaning, and that stinks, and that's no good, and I hate that, and it's like meaningless vanity. It's not worth it. It's all just vanity. It's like that's the book of Ecclesiastes. But here, he goes just for a moment, he does something a bit unusual, and he actually goes positive. He shows us that there is a better way to live in a broken world. Listen, not a way out of the pain, but a way through it. Here's what he says in verse 9. He says, two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. Two are better than one. He says two are better than one. Listen, my wife will tell you that I so resonate with that. Two are better than one. I'm like, amen to that. Like, she and I are complete opposites when it comes to this stuff. My wife is someone who likes to host things. She likes large gatherings of people, being amongst like the people, having people come over, going out with lots of people. Me, that absolutely stresses me out. Like no other. But on the flip side, my wife loves to be alone, which is really weird. She loves to be alone. She can spend hours alone and feel totally content about that. Me, on the other hand, I hate being alone. Like, I don't want it. I mean, my wife will ask me and she'll say, hey, can you run to like the store and get some milk? And I'm like, yeah, who's coming with me? Like, that's just what I do. I mean, it's just like, why would I go by myself? I'm like, let's go. But my wife, like, she has done this before. She'll be like, hey, why don't you take the kids and just go somewhere? Like, for hours. And I'm like, okay, but what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to be here alone. That's no fun. I mean, what? And she's like, trust me, I'll be fine. I'll be all right. You just go. But here's what Solomon is saying. Solomon is saying, listen, no matter where you are on the spectrum, two are better than one. However you're wired, two are better than one. Now, that sounds maybe obvious to us, but Solomon, understand, he's not being sentimental here. He's not trying to grab at your emotions here. That's not what he's doing. That's not what Ecclesiastes is about at all. You read Ecclesiastes wrong if you're just going, oh, this is about emotion. That's not what this is. This is just an honest look at life. He's being practical here. He's being wise. He's not saying relationships make life easy. He's just saying that relationships make life livable. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. Solomon doesn't say that two are better than one because all of a sudden when you have two, life is suddenly fair. No, he's saying that two are better than one because life is still hard and now you're not alone in it. Relationships don't fix the brokenness of the world, but they change how you go about it and how you carry the brokenness that you're in. And so the question isn't, do I have people around me? The question is, who am I walking with? Who am I walking with? He says in verse 10, he says, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. You know what he just said? He said, hey, you're going to fall. You're going to fall. I mean, this place is messed up. This world is broken. You're going to struggle in this world. And going alone in that makes it so much harder. Like, some of us fall and nobody knows. Nobody knows. Not because nobody cares, but because we've never let anybody in. We've never let anybody close enough. One of God's gifts to us is that he gives us people who help us up, not people who pretend that we never fall. That relationships are God's gift. Going alone is foolish, but relationships are God's gift. He says in verse 11, he says again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Now listen, don't take this so literal that you miss the point here, all right? Some of you single guys are going, you're like highlighting that verse, right? Baby, I'm telling you, Ecclesiastes 4 is where it says we got to lie together. That's not what this is, all right? Listen, he's not talking about body heat here, all right? Listen, he's saying that with all of the brokenness of sin and pain in the world, there are some cold times that are coming for your life. Like moments in life where discouragement and grief or loneliness sets in. There are seasons where you don't need advice, you need presence. And going through that alone is heavier than it needs to be. And he says that though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Listen, don't misunderstand what he's saying here. He's not saying that people are your security. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that God weaves strength through relationship. The strength doesn't come from having a lot of people, but it comes from having the right people around you. People who walk with God, people who will walk with you, people who don't disappear when things get hard. They don't remove the pain, but they change how we walk through the pain. And some of you are going through some stuff right now, and you're trying to figure it out. But the truth is, it's very possible that what you need is not a new plan, but you need some people. You need some people who know you. You need to let yourself be known. You need to let somebody walk with you. Not because people save us, but because they are a gift that God gives. But here's where we get in trouble. We talked about this last week. If you watched online, I mentioned about how we take the gifts that God has given, and instead of receiving those gifts as gifts, we lose ourselves in those things. That we take those things, we take the gift, and we turn it into an idol. We turn it into something ultimate. We worship that instead of the giver. And this is what happens often with relationships. That relationships are God's gift, but relationships are not our hope. They're not our hope. This is where he goes in verse 13. He says, "Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with the youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, all of whom he led." So you've got an old king who's lost touch with reality, not because he's old, but because he stopped listening. He's no longer taking advice from anybody. And so he's not aware of the reality of what's going on around him. He's surrounded by people, but he's disconnected from reality. But then there's this young guy. And he comes from a poor family, and he was raised in this kingdom, and he doesn't have a name that anybody recognizes. He has no advantage. He's not working his way through the ranks because somebody's bringing him up, and he's got a future ahead of him. That's not it. But somehow he works his way up where he goes from nothing to the throne. He's the new guy. He's the new king. It's the rags to riches story that everybody loves. And everybody loves him. Everyone's excited. This is the leader that the people want. The one who feels different. The one who feels like hope. Like this new guy, this young guy, he's going to give us what we're looking for. Everybody's about this guy. And here's how it ends. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and is striving after wind. In other words, he's just the old guy now. A new generation is born, comes up, and you look at this guy who was like so cool, and he's the guy, and he's where our hope is found, and he's going to make things different, and everybody's about it, and all of a sudden a new generation comes up, and he's the old guy. We're looking for somebody else. The next generation, he's the one the next generation ignores, the one that nobody cares about, the one who no longer feels impressive, not because he suddenly became a moron, but because this is how it always works. This is just the way it goes. The applause fades. The admiration, it just moves on. Somebody new comes along, and everybody's about, they're about them. And Solomon says this too is vanity. Because no human relationship can carry the weight of our hope. Only God can carry what we need and what we long for. Only God can carry the weight of our identity. Only God can carry the weight of our security. Only God can carry the weight of our hope. And when we place that weight, when we look for our identity or our security, our hope in somebody else, on people, something always breaks. Because we're asking for them to be more than God ever intended them to be. Listen, when your husband, when your wife becomes responsible for your happiness, and they can't give you what you want from them, what you're longing for out of them, then what happens? You get disappointed. And you probably get bitter because they're not giving you the thing that you think that they should be giving you. When you look to your friends to be your emotional savior and they start pulling away because they just can't be that and they really just don't want to be that, what happens? You feel abandoned. And man, do we do this with our kids? And you wrap your identity in being a mother or being a father, and without you even realizing it, your children become your sense of meaning or legacy. What's going on there? You're quietly placing pressure on your children that they were never meant to carry. Listen, we don't just love people, we load them, right? And eventually usually people that we love and that we trust, they either push back or they collapse under that weight because they weren't built for that. They weren't built to carry your identity. They weren't built to carry your security. They weren't built to be your hope. And it doesn't just damage them, and it damages them, but it changes us. We become anxious because our hope is fragile. We become controlling because we can't afford to lose it. We become disillusioned because people always disappoint and will always disappoint eventually. When relationships become our hope, we live constantly afraid of loss. And when loss comes, and it always does, we feel empty. This is why Solomon calls this vanity. Not because relationships don't matter, but because when they matter too much, they become ultimate. And listen, I've seen this so many times. And what happens when we don't get it right? I've watched friendships unravel, not because someone did something terrible, but because comparison quietly turned people against one another. I've seen families carry expectations that they were never meant to carry. I've watched marriages start strong, but slowly crack under the pressure of being asked to provide identity, security, and meaning. Things that no relationship was ever built to hold on to. Relationships are a gift from God, and they can be a joy and even life-giving when they are received as a gift and not leaned on for hope. So Solomon is just looking at life under the sun. And he's going, look, I don't need to say this out loud, but I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. It's a messed up place. It's a broken world. And then he just gets honest and says, and here's how people tend to respond. They either isolate, go in solo, or they go all in, depending on people for their hope. And as he watches this whole thing plays out, these three truths become clear. First, going alone is foolish. Because the world is broken, and we weren't meant to carry the brokenness of this world on our own. And relationships are God's gift, not to fix the brokenness, but to help us live in it. And relationships are not our hope, because only God can carry what our hearts are actually longing for. And so then if the world is broken, if going alone is foolish, and even if the best relationships can't carry the weight of our hope, then where do we find real hope? Well, this is where the gospel matters. The good news is not that God tells us to try harder and find our way to Him. The good news is that Jesus came to us. That Jesus stepped into the broken world Solomon describes, not above it, not outside it, but into it. And Jesus says something remarkable. He said this, when he got here, he said, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. That when we fall, Jesus doesn't shame us or walk away. He takes our sin and our failure upon himself at the cross. When life grows cold, Jesus doesn't stay distant. He enters our suffering and he stays with us. And when you and I are weak and exposed, Jesus stands in our place, taking the judgment that we deserve. At the cross, Jesus carried our sin. He carried our guilt and our failure. And in the resurrection, he defeated sin and death. Listen, every other relationship eventually lets you down. Not because people are bad, but because they're human. Jesus is the only one who can carry the weight of our longing and our hope. Some of you are here today and you wouldn't call yourself a Christian. Maybe you've tried to carry life on your own, or maybe you've looked to people, you've looked to success or relationships to give you what you need. And if you're honest, you even know this. You don't have to be a Christian to just know this. It hasn't worked. Like no matter how much money you got, no matter how far you went in that company, No matter what it is, no matter how many accolades you got, no matter what relationships you had, it just hasn't worked. And Jesus isn't asking you to clean up yourself or figure everything out. He's inviting you to trust him, to turn from self-reliance, to turn from misplaced hope, and to receive forgiveness and new life through him. If you're sensing that pull today, listen, that's not pressure, that's God's grace. And for those of you who do follow Jesus, this matters. Some of you love Jesus, but you're expecting people to carry what only Jesus can carry. You've put the weight of your joy, your security, your identity on a relationship. And listen, man, just because of my position here, I've seen it. I've had the conversations. I've seen it. It's happening. And others of you, you're not leaning on people at all. Because for you, it's like, yeah, you got whatever reason, whatever excuse you have. It's not my personality. Or maybe it just feels safer to just go about it alone. But listen, if you would allow yourself to be known, you need to understand that there are people sitting in this room right now that God wants to be a gift to you. Not to fix you, not to replace Jesus, but to walk with you, to help you up and remind you of what's true when life feels heavy. And some of you have not experienced that, not because it's not available to you, but because you've pulled back. And Jesus is not calling you to isolation. That is foolish. He's calling you to trust him enough to step back toward his people, to receive relationship as a gift again, not as your hope. Life under the sun is broken. Going alone is foolish. Relationships are a gift, but they are not our hope. Jesus is.